Today, I got you with the controller and camera settings I use to get into the top 200 Elite Division as well as rank 1 in FUT Champs. Feel free to go ahead and copy things, but otherwise I'm going to explain a few settings as they may vary due to personal preference, as well as explain things so you know what they're actually doing in game. So without further ado, let's get into things. Going to quickly start with the camera settings. As you can see, I use the legacy camera, which is definitely not as common, but it is what I prefer. Most people typically try co-op, tele broadcast, but for me, this is what I found best, especially for dribbling and tackling when it comes to the depth perception. Again, this is just a personal preference, so use what suits you. Rush camera, legacy is not an option, so we use rush broadcast. Not playing goalie, but now custom camera settings. So with the legacy, I use 10 height, 0 zoom. As for the rest of the settings, don't really touch these other than power shot zoom set to off. The reason for me on this is if you're playing someone that's doing power shots a lot, I don't really like seeing my camera zoom all the way in, especially if they fake it, then your camera will start going in and out. I don't really like that personally, so I leave it on off. Moving on to the visual settings. There's a lot of settings here, so I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to scroll down, let you guys see what I have, but I'm going to point out two of them. First one, playstyle plus overhead indicator off. This is when you can see the gold playstyle above your head. So if you have like technical, anticipate, quick step, it'll show your player when it activates. I don't really need to see that. And in past FIFAs or FCs, I can say, it used to cause lagging issues. I don't know if that's still the case, but I'm just leaving it on off. And the other really important one here is the next player switch indicator. This will show you if you do click LB or L1 on your controller, it'll show you who you're switching to before you click the bumper. So I think that's very useful. So make sure that one's on. The rest of this doesn't really matter. You can turn hold to skip off. So rather than like when you're loading into a game, you don't have to hold it down. You just tap it, hence hold to skip. You guys can see the rest of these. Most of them didn't really touch. Another big one that I will point out is connection monitoring. I do use it on ping and connection indicator. This is because when I'm in game, I like to see at the top of the screen if my game is lagging, if it's yellow and red indicators, if things are not working. It's good to know when your game is delayed, so at least you can try to compensate for it a little bit. As for the rest of these, don't really touch too much. Some of these, tactical, chalkboard, hypermotion, insight overlays, we may want to consider turning them off maybe if you don't really care to see all that stuff on your screen when you're playing the game. But for me, I've just left it on so far. Now, moving on to the gameplay. Preset competitive. If you're playing online, you have to have it on competitive, at least when you're playing rivals, champs, and most modes. There's a few modes where you don't have it, but for the most part, you will be on competitive. So moving to the first setting we can actually change, shot assistance. And this is a really, really big one. You have assisted, manual, and precision. Personally, I use assisted. If you're a pro player, you're forced to use precision in pro play. Basically, the difference between the two is precision is a more manual shot. So it's not fully manual, but it is a lot closer to manual, meaning if you are aiming properly, you get a boost and bonus to your shot. But if you do not aim correctly, you're going to be missing a lot of easy chances. The reason I use assisted and I don't go for that little bonus that I'm talking about is that when you're shooting from really tight angles or if I'm shooting far finesse and travellas, it's really, really hard to use precision. I feel like you just cannot perfectly aim those type of shots, and assisted is way better for that. If you're shooting simple shots in and around the box, for the most part, more centrally, precision can be nice there. But in my opinion, I'm already expecting to score those shots anyways, so I don't really need a little bonus. And if anything, you can always just green time your shots. So again, personally, I use assisted. You can try precision, but a lot of people will tell you to stay on assisted. Even a lot of pros that I've talked to have said they would rather have it on assisted as well. But so assisted is the way to go. Time finishing. If you green time your shots, turn it on. If you do not know how to time your shots or you don't care to, turn it off. If the ball's coming across the box or you play a corner into the box or something and you're spamming your shoot button, you don't want to red time it. So if you're somebody that spams your shoot button, turn it off. If you know how to green time, time finishing on. All of this passing is on the default stuff. I'll let you guys see them. Pass, receiver, lock, late. The other options, animation start and power up. The reason I use it on late is this means when I click pass, I have up until my player kicks the ball basically to move where I want to pass it. So let's say I realize where I was going to pass, the ball's about to get intercepted, my player moves in a spot that I don't want them to go anymore, and I'm going to lose the ball. I can move my left stick at the last second and pass somewhere else. If you use animation start or power up, you don't have that much luxury in terms of doing that. So I recommend using it on late. Pass sensitivity, I just have it on normal. You have high, normal. I just leave it on high. Haven't changed it, so I'm leaving it there. Clearance assistance, directional or classic. Directional basically means when you go to clear the ball, it will take into account where you're aiming your joystick. So in my head, that means where I aim is where I want the ball to go. If you put it on classic, the game will take into consideration, try to find the best spot to put the ball. I'm not really giving the game, making decisions for me. So I'm going to go with directional. Tactical or advanced? Personally, I use tactical. A lot of people I know always ask about this. Advanced gives you the option to do a shoulder check or a normal standing tackle. But for me, I don't really click tackle that much anyways. And even though we don't usually want the game to decide things for us, and you think advanced gives you more manual control, for this one, personally, I like it on tactical. I haven't had any issues. Some people say even on advanced, sometimes with those shoulder challenges, they give more fouls. Not sure if that's true, but I use tactical. Class block assistance on switching, air balls and loose balls. Auto switching move assistance. This is a big one. None, low, high. I use none. What this means, when you switch players, you basically, if it's on none, you right away, you get control of your player essentially. If you put it on low or high, they'll take a few steps and keep running in the direction they're already running before you take control of them. Where that could be helpful, I always say this, if somebody plays a through ball, you switch to your center back and you have it on high or low, they'll take a few steps before you take control, so it'll help you stay running in that same direction. But if it's on none and you switch players and you don't keep holding your joystick in the right direction, your player could just come to a complete stop. Personally, if someone did play a through ball in that case that I just gave, I would be running in that direction anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. And if they are to stop on a dime or change directions quick, I want to be able to stop with them, control my player as fast as possible, be as responsive as possible. So I use none. Another thing I will point out with this pass block assistance, everyone should have this on. What this is basically doing is it allows the AI to help intercept the ball. So if the ball gets passed close enough, they'll reach their leg out. That's what that means. No reason to turn that off. Right stick switching, classic. You do have these other options. Adaptive, stay away from. Terrible. This it was a problem in previous FIFAs where your whole game would like glitch and lag. Trust me, just use classic. Much more responsive and faster. Player relative or ball relative. I made a right stick switching player tutorial for this. Player relative, in my opinion, is much better. The reason being, in a quick explanation, if you want to watch the full video, feel free to go watch it on my channel. What this means is you switch based on the player you're controlling. So let's say you're holding your midfielder and I want to switch to my center back. I'm switching based on where my player is standing. The reason this is better than ball relative is because player relative, my team is always standing in the same formation, so my right stick switching is always the same. They're always lining up in the same positions. In ball relative, it's based on where the ball is on the field. So if the ball is constantly moving, the right stick switching is not the same every switch. So player relative for me, more consistent. Again, I have a full video explaining it, slowing it down, gives you a way better in-depth. That was just a quick 5-second explanation. Hopefully it kind of made sense. Switching sensitivity 4. Classic. Reaction time modifier. Everyone's telling me turn this off, so I turned it off. Honestly, it was supposed to make the menus feel better or something, or your game be better. I didn't notice anything, but it's off. So I guess the sensitivity doesn't really matter since it's off. I guess leave it off. That one, I don't really think it makes much of a difference. And honestly, as you can see in the description, it's supposed to be when you're clicking your left bumper to switch. I don't use my left bumper to switch, at least not very often, very rarely. So I'm just leaving it off for now. Player lock. If you don't player lock, turn it off so you don't accidentally do it. If you use player lock, make sure to keep it on. Textual is automatically off. I'm not playing goalie. Analog sprint off. This is a big one. If you're doing the L1 speed boost or you're trying to run really fast, if it's off, this basically means as soon as you tap your sprint button, your guy will go 0 to 100. If you turn it on, your player will gradually work their way through the sprint based on how hard you're holding down the button on your controller. So off means I can go 0 to 100. I can run a lot faster. Definitely recommend making sure that one is off. Hopefully these settings help you. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Tactics video coming soon. And as always, I appreciate every single one of you guys that are always coming through and supporting me. And stay wiggly.